Mr. Buttigieg finally did come into East Palestine, Ohio. It took him 18 days when it should have took him 18 minutes, but he finally did come, and that is because of pressure. Now, federal legislation also has been introduced, to David's point about some of the things that need to happen in the long term, and that is by Reps Ro Khanna and Chris Deluzio, to ensure that trains like the one that derailed in Ohio are regulated more strictly. Let's put up this headline: Khanna Deluzio unveiled Derail Act to prevent another disaster like East Palestine. We can't trust giant corporations like Norfolk Southern to keep communities safe out of the goodness of their hearts. Because if they had goodness in their hearts, this wouldn't have never happened. But I digress. Said Rep Chris Deluzio, they're in it for profits, plain and simple. And you know what? Nothing wrong with making profits, but when your profit making causes destruction to other folks, causes them pain, anxiety, and grief, then you need to check yourself before you wreck yourself, to quote one of the great urban poets in a rap song. Let's put up what Rep Ro Khanna put out in his tweet. At Lever Reporting highlighted this glaring gap in our regulations. It's time we put people's safety over corporate profits. Amen and amen and amen to that. And then Congressman Chris Deluzio said the following: we can't trust giant corporations like Norfolk Southern to keep communities safe out of the goodness of their hearts. They're in it for profits, plain and simple. Today, I'm introducing the Derail Act with Rep Ro Khanna to better regulate the railroads and put public safety first. David, this is good, like immediate federal actions being taken in the Congress. We know that there are still some things that the administration can do with or without Congress, but I'm really glad to see this.
Yeah, and especially because if nothing else, it sparks a debate. And so you have a lot of Republicans who have said, yes, we need to actually take some steps. Well, let's have this discussion now. We all agree that there needs to be better oversight and regulation of these giant rail companies and then make sure that there's greater safety for the citizens who are exposed to this sort of thing. So, okay, Republicans, here's a proposal. Do you agree or disagree? If you don't agree, what's your alternative? How would you try to fix this? Let's have the discussion, because if we're not having the discussion, we're not making any progress.
There it is. So no more excuses. Republicans and Democrats can get together in a bipartisan way other than to make war. They can get together to make sure that nothing like this ever happens in another community again. And then they can build upon this and make sure again that Norfolk Southern, they need to bounce for this. There needs to be truly deep repercussions and consequences. There's so much that can be done. And I want us to take a look at the thread on Twitter from Professor Zinkis, who really laid out some of the things that can be done. The creek in East Palestine empties into the Ohio River, which travels through multiple states and ends up in the Mississippi River. President Biden needs to declare a national emergency. I agree with the professor. Whatever the administration can do to get to maximize the biggest opportunity to correct this wrong, to make some crooked paths straight, they should do it. Next in his thread, through the ACA, that's the Affordable Care Act, Biden could extend Medicare for life for every resident of East Palestine. Come on, GOP, I know y'all down for that. And surrounding areas. The long-term effects of exposure to these chemical toxins can be devastating. Everyone affected needs to be covered from this day forward. Amen to that. And this is another point that also Crystal Ball made on her show as well, that there is power in the way that the ACA is written. The way they classify what is happening in East Palestine will allow these residents to get health care for life. I am calling on the Democrats and the Republicans to get together, baby, and make this happen for these residents. You ain't gotta hesitate, you can do that right now. Professor goes on, the president also has power to immediately, not 18 days from now, immediately regulate the rail industry to prevent such disasters from happening again. Biden would also have the power to force Norfolk Southern to buy up all of the residents' property and also make sure all residents are relocated. A very important point. How are the residents of East Palestine who do own homes, not all of them do, but the ones that do, they're not gonna be able to put that home on the market. Who's gonna wanna buy it? Who's gonna wanna live and move in there? Those residents should have the opportunity to be made completely whole, both in the short term and also in the long term. And finally, the professor writes, the president, or all of this can and should happen tomorrow. I'm with you, Professor. Biden should Biden should travel to East Palestine and announce this. Yeah, he should. He went over to Ukraine. He should go on and make Air Force One, go on and get on over there. Come on through Ohio. Makes no sense right there. And David, they gave the Republicans a very good retort, unfortunately, because the president did not come there and has said that he may or may not go there. Put that back up one more quick time, then I want David to weigh in on this. The professor also said that Biden would also have, or the people of East Palestine and other affected areas need to be taken care of, and our land and waterways need to be cleaned out immediately. And that is not only for the residents of East Palestine, but also what is happening in parts of Pennsylvania as well. They are impacted by this. So, David, the good professor laid out a number of things that can happen without even Congress making one move.
Right, and I think that this should be a larger issue, of course, than just Pennsylvania and East Palestine, because as you pointed out, I mean, the Ohio River Valley, there are 20 million people that live in the Ohio River Valley. You've got cities like Cincinnati and Evansville, Indiana, and Louisville, Kentucky. They get their drinking water from the Ohio River, and right now is not the time where I want to be trusting the corporations that are in charge of my water in Cincinnati or Evansville or Louisville, because you've seen what the profit motive does. So everyone needs to be concerned. Everyone needs to be vigilant on this, because it's not just one isolated community. So many people could be affected if in fact more corporations are not doing the right thing.
There it is. Even people who voted for Joseph Biden could be impacted. Wow. Yeah, that's why it's not a good idea to base humanitarian efforts on who voted for whom. Just doesn't work out in the end. We're gonna stay on top of this. You better bet your bottom dollar we are going to continue to talk about this and report on this. We'll keep you posted weekly on what's happening in East Palestine, and sometimes maybe 3 or 4 times a week, because it's them today. It could be any of us tomorrow.